Hello, friends. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into something that's been on my mind a lot lately, something I call the fire within. I'm talking about inflammation. Now, don't click away just yet. This isn't some dry lecture with big science words. Nope, this is a story, a journey we're going to take together. Picture me sitting across from you with a cup of tea, sharing tales from my life, some surprises I've uncovered, and a toolbox full of tricks to help us all feel a little better. You see, inflammation's a bit like a fire. When it's under control, it's a good thing, keeps us warm, helps us heal, but when it rages out of hand, well, that's when the trouble starts. So, grab a comfy seat, maybe a snack, something healthy, mind you, and let's get started. Here's Chapter 1. The Spark That Starts It All. Chapter 1. The Spark That Starts It All. Imagine you're cozied up by a fireplace on a cold winter night. The logs crackle, the heat wraps around you like a blanket, and there's that soft glow dancing on the walls. It's perfect, right? That fire's doing exactly what it's supposed to, keeping you warm, making everything feel right. Now, hold that thought, because here's where it gets interesting. What if that fire suddenly jumps the hearth? One minute it's your friend, the next it's licking at the rug, climbing the curtains, sending smoke everywhere. That peaceful warmth turns into a full-on disaster. That's inflammation in a nutshell. It's a natural part of how our bodies work, like that fireplace. When you nick your finger chopping carrots or catch a cold from your grandkid, inflammation's the crew that rushes in. It's your body's repair team, showing up with bandages and brooms to clean up the mess. A little swelling, a bit of heat, that's all normal. It's supposed to fade away once the job's done, leaving you good as new. But here's the hitch. Sometimes that crew doesn't clock out. The fire keeps burning, even after the cut's healed or the cold's gone. It's like they've set up camp, tossing more logs on the pile. And instead of fixing things, they start breaking them down. That's what we call chronic inflammation, when the flames get out of control and leave a trail of trouble behind. I've seen this up close. You know, a while back, must have been 10 years ago now, I had a clumsy moment. Picture me, arms full of a laundry basket, tripping down the last 3 steps of my staircase. Landed hard, twisted my ankle something fierce. It puffed up like a grapefruit, all red and angry, and I figured, give it a week, it'll sort itself out. But weeks turned into months, and that ankle still ached. Mornings, it'd creak like an old rocking chair, stiff and stubborn. I'd limp around, muttering to myself, this isn't right. That's when I started digging into what was going on, and I learned inflammation doesn't always pack up and leave politely. It can settle in, build scar tissue, turn a little tumble into a long-term nag. And it's not just old injuries. Ever had a flu that knocked you flat, where the fever and aches felt like your body was fighting a war? That's inflammation, too, battling the bug. But sometimes it's our own reaction that does the real damage, like friendly fire in a skirmish. Doctors call it a cytokine storm when it goes wild in your lungs. And they'll give you something like prednisone, a fancy version of your body's calming juice, to hush it down. Thing is, if that fire's burning too hot, too long, it's not just the virus you're fighting, it's the mess it leaves behind. So, here's what we're going to do today. We're going on a journey through this fire within. We'll figure out why it flares up, what it's doing to us when we don't even notice, and, most importantly, how we can tame it. I'll share stories from my own life, some lessons I've picked up along the way, and a few surprises that might just make you say, I never thought of that. Ready? Let's step into the warmth, but not too close. On to Chapter 2. Chapter 2. The Hidden Troublemaker. Let me tell you about my neighbor, Tom. Tom's a solid guy, mid-60s. Built like he could still wrestle a bear if he had to. He's always out there tinkering with his old pickup truck or hauling firewood for his wood stove. A real do-it-yourself type. But a few years back, Tom started slowing down. He'd say things like, I'm just tired, or my knees are giving me grief again. His back would grumble when he bent over, and he'd brush it off with a laugh. Guess I'm not 30 anymore. Fair enough, right? We all feel those years creeping in. But one day, over coffee on his porch, he let something slip. Doc's got me on this new medicine, he said. Humira, supposed to help with the aches. I perked up at that. Humira, I'd heard of it. It's one of the biggest drugs out there, raking in billions. And you know what it's for? wrestling down inflammation. That got my wheels turning. Here's Tom, a tough as nails guy. And even he's tangled up with this hidden troublemaker. How many of us are in the same boat? Not even knowing it? Because here's the thing. Inflammation isn't just about creaky knees or a stiff back. It's a sneaky little devil, slipping into all corners of your body. It's not loud like a broken leg or obvious like a fever. It's quiet, creeping, like a guest who overstays their welcome, rummaging through your house while you're not looking. It can settle in your gut, making every meal a battle. It can camp out in your lungs, turning a cough into something worse. It can even sneak into your heart, laying the groundwork for trouble down the road. Take autoimmune diseases, ever heard of those? They're like the body turning on itself. A case of mistaken identity. My friend Carol's got rheumatoid arthritis. Her hands twist up like knotted tree branches. And some days she can barely hold a mug. Then there's Crohn's, folks with that say their stomach feels like a war zone. All churned up and angry. Even losing patches of hair. Yep, that's inflammation. 2. Something called alopecia. The body gets confused, starts attacking its own hair follicles like they're invaders. What ties all these together? That fire's burning too hot. And it's not just a nuisance, it's doing real damage. Now, here's something that stopped me in my tracks when I first heard it. It's got a big name, inflammatory onchotaxis, but don't let that scare you off. It's just a fancy way of saying cancer likes to move into spots where inflammation's already simmering. Picture this, an old knee injury. One you've babied for years. Always a little sore. That constant irritation? It's like rolling out the red carpet for trouble. Same goes for your lungs if you've smoked too long. Those irritated airways become a hot spot. Or your colon, if spicy foods or bad habits keep stirring the pot. Even breast tissue, if it's taken a hit from an old injury, could be at risk. It's like the body's saying, hey, this place is already a mess. Why not set up shop? I'm not telling you this to spook you. I promise. It's about knowing what's what. If we can spot where the fire's burning, we can douse it before it spreads. Think of it like checking your smoke detectors. You don't wait for the house to catch fire. Right? So, let's dig deeper. What's tossing logs onto this blaze? That's where we're headed next. Chapter 3. The Usual Suspects. Chapter 3. The Usual Suspects. Every good mystery needs a lineup of suspects. And inflammation's got a whole cast of characters worth investigating. Let's meet them, one by one, and I'll weave in some stories from my own life to bring them to life. Grab your detective hat, we're on the case. First up, stress. Yep, plain old stress. The kind we all know too well. Your body's got this hormone called cortisol. It's like a built-in fire extinguisher, rushing in to cool things down when the heat's on. Say you stub your toe or catch a bug, cortisol's there, calming the flames. But here's the twist. When you're stressed all the time, your body pumps out so much cortisol it's like the extinguisher runs dry. It stops working right. I felt this myself back when life was a juggling act, full-time job, kids running wild, and a roof that leaked every spring. My elbow, an old softball injury, started throbbing again. Out of nowhere. Took me a while to connect the dots. Too much stress, too much cortisol, and not enough relief. It's like my body got tired of listening to its own signals. And the fire just kept smoldering. Next suspect. Allergies. Oh, these are sneaky little troublemakers. My sister, Linda, can't touch dairy without her stomach throwing a fit. One sip of milk, and it's like her gut's staging a full-on protest. Bloating, cramps, the works. That's inflammation right there. Same goes for gluten, that pesky protein in wheat. How many folks do you know who say, bread just doesn't sit right with me? Even if it's not a full-blown allergy, it can still irritate things. Then there's the air around us. Pollen, ragweed, dust. I've got a friend who sneezes her way through spring like it's a personal vendetta. Me? I've got my own nemesis, poison ivy. I swear, I just have to walk within 300 feet of the stuff. And my skin's itching like I've rolled in a briar patch. Last summer, I brushed past some while gardening, didn't even see it, and spent a week slathering on cream. Cursing my luck. But here's the wildest allergy of all. When your body turns on itself. That's autoimmune trouble. My cousin Jenny's got lupus. Her immune system attacks her joints like they're the enemy. She'll say, it's like my body's mad at me. And I don't know why. Hashimoto's does the same to your thyroid. MS picks on the nerves in your brain. It's all inflammation, gone haywire. Third on the list, infections. A cold or a flu? That's simple enough, your body fights. The fire flares, then it dies down. But some bugs are craftier. Ever hear of Epstein-Barr? It's that virus behind mono. You might have caught it as a teenager swapping kisses at a dance. It can hide out for years, popping up when you're run down. My buddy Mike swears his Lyme disease, from a tick bite back in the 90s, still kicks up a fuss when life gets hectic. These stowaways keep the fire simmering, waiting for a chance to flare. Now, let's talk food, especially sugar. Oh, I used to love my morning donuts. That sweet glaze melting on my tongue. But I learned the hard way they're like tossing gasoline on the flames. Sugar spikes your blood, irritates your arteries, and sets off a chain reaction. Heart trouble, eye problems, tingling feet, it's all tied to that sticky stuff. And it's not just sweets. Fried foods loaded with bad oils, soy, canola, cottonseed, they're everywhere. I'll never forget the time I ate a big plate of greasy fries at a diner. My gut groaned for days, like it was begging me to wise up. Old injuries? They're culprits, too. That ankle I twisted still pipes up now and then. Stiff as a board, scarred tissue builds up, keeps the fire smoldering. And here's a strange one, your own fat cells can stir the pot. They send out little messengers that crank up the heat. And the more fat you've got, the worse it gets. It's a vicious cycle. Inflammation makes you store more fat, and more fat makes more inflammation. Then there's the oddballs, like clogged bile ducts. Those are the tubes running from your liver. And if they get gunked up, you'll feel it, usually on your right side. I had a spell once where I thought I pulled a muscle. But it was my liver complaining. Too much iron's another sneaky one. Think fortified cereals or cooking in cast iron pans. It can pile up in your liver, sparking trouble. So, there's our lineup: stress, allergies, infections, food, old aches, and more, all tossing logs on the fire. But don't worry, we're not just naming villains here. We're about to fight back. Up next, Chapter 4. Taming the Flames. Chapter 4. Taming the Flames. Alright, we've met the troublemakers. Now it's time to fight fire with, well, not fire, but some darn good tools. I've spent years figuring this out, piecing together what works from my own stumbles and successes. Let's open the toolbox and see what's inside. First tool. The sunshine vitamin, vitamin D. It's like a gentle rain on a hot day, cooling everything down. Most of us don't get enough, especially if you're cooped up indoors or it's gray outside half the year. I started taking it myself after that ankle kept nagging me. I go for 10.000 units a day, sometimes 20.000 if I'm feeling extra creaky. Pair it with a little vitamin K2, and it's a dream team. K2 keeps your bones strong and stops calcium from gumming up your arteries. It's like a traffic cop, directing things where they belong. Food's next, and this one's big. Ditch the sugar and carbs. Those donuts I loved? They're history. Same with white bread, pasta, all that stuff that turns to sugar in your blood. Instead, I lean into low-carb eating. Picture a big salad with olive oil dripping off the leaves, a hunk of salmon sizzling on the grill, or a bowl of crunchy cabbage. Cabbage, by the way, is a gut's best buddy. After a bout of stomach trouble, too many spicy tacos, I reckon, I started eating sauerkraut. It was like a cool breeze swept through the heat. Wheatgrass juice is another gem. Don't worry, it's not the wheat that messes with you. Just the green shoots before it turns into grain. Mix some powder and water, and it's like a healing tonic for your insides. A little zinc helps, too, especially if your tummy's been roughed up by too much junk. I keep a stash of zinc L-carnosine handy. It's like a band-aid for your gut. Here's a secret weapon: fasting. I know, skipping meals sounds crazy, right? But hear me out. Giving your body a break, say, eating just 2 meals a day, lets the fire die down. I tried it after hearing it could reset things, and my elbow pain eased up like magic. It's not about starving, it's about timing. Snack less, let your system rest, and watch what happens. Omega-3s are your allies. 2. Think fish, salmon, sardines, or a spoonful of cod liver oil. They balance out those nasty oils from fast food joints, the ones that stoke the flames. I started adding them when I noticed my knees creaking less on rainy days. For gut woes, bile salts can unclog those liver tubes. I had a nagging ache under my ribs once, thought it was a pulled muscle. But it was sludge in my bile ducts. A little purified bile salt. And poof, pain gone. Tutka's another option. Thins things out like a charm. And if stress is your trigger, herbs can be a warm hug for your insides. Turmeric's my go-to. I get mine from a farmer down the road. He grows it in a greenhouse, dries it, chops it up. Chewing it's like a burst of sunshine in my mouth. All earthy and bright. Stinging nettle root's another favorite, sounds prickly. But it's a gentle soother. These tools aren't fancy pills or quick fixes. They're simple, real things you can weave into your days. And they work, I've seen it, felt it. Let's wrap this journey up with Chapter 5, Living Flame-Free. Chapter 5. Living flame-free. Picture this. A life where your joints don't creak like a rusty gate. Your gut doesn't grumble after every meal. Your energy's back, like you've turned the clock a few ticks. That's what taming inflammation can do. It's not about chasing perfection or swallowing a dozen supplements. It's about small, smart choices that bank the fire, turning it back into that cozy glow it's meant to be. Take my neighbor Tom. After cutting sugar and adding vitamin D, he's back to hauling firewood without a groan. He'll grin and say, "Feels like I've got my old legs again." My sister Linda ditched dairy, and she's not doubled over after lunch anymore. Me? I'm still dodging poison ivy like it's my sworn enemy. But my ankle's quieter these days. We're not perfect, but we're learning to live with the fire, not against it. So, here's my challenge to you. Friends, pick one thing from this journey. Maybe it's a spoonful of sauerkraut with dinner, a sunny walk to soak up some vitamin D, swapping soda for water or fries for a handful of nuts. Try it for a week, see how it feels. You don't have to overhaul everything overnight. Little by little, you're nudging that fire back into its place, letting it warm you gently as you go. Thanks for coming along on this ride. If you liked it, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you back. Drop a comment, tell me your story, what you're trying. Let's keep this fire under control. Together. See you next time.